Hi friends, host Eric here, host Talking with Fast People. I got one or two more of these things I made today. I think I'm trying to hammer out a bunch of work. Trying to get 5 or 6 of these lined up and scheduled and premiered, and then not have to worry about it for a few days. Intuition, there's an I in there, Eric. Ah, get it right. The mechanics of slot relations. This is page 32. We're starting on. Yeah. The mechanics of slot relations runs on necessitation and exclusion. What does that mean? Well, in other words, if you know the base function, you also know the ignoring function and the seeking function. The table below shows how stack mechanics work. To use this table, simply define A1 as N, S, T, or F, then define O as E or I. For example, if I say A1 equals N and O equals E, then the first slot is NE and the fifth slot is NI and the fourth slot equals A2, which is SI for NE. So here's the legend to this table. A1 is intuition, A1 equals sensing. If A1 equals intuition, then A2 equals sensing, and BX equals thinking or feeling. If A1 equals sensing, then A2 equals intuition, and BX equals thinking or feeling. And so you see the B's here, right? Now, I don't see any BX, I just see B2. What's B1? Oh, I see, there's B1. Okay, so what it's saying is, if you have intuition first, then you have either thinking or feeling here and thinking or feeling here. Right? And the orientation, extroverted, introverted of the dominant function, the opposite orientation of the dominant function. I don't know why I didn't put I's in my intuitions. I guess I was feeling like I didn't want to waste the I's, probably. Like, okay, there's so many I's I've been using here. So if you want to understand how mechanics work in terms of the math, so to speak, when you know the first one, you can know that, right? So similarly, it works with the B. If you know the second function, then you know that this will be the same orientation as this, but if B1, I guess I need to put that here. If B1 is thinking or feeling, whatever B1 is, B2 is the opposite one according to this. So I didn't really put that there, but that seems fairly straightforward. Whether you want to use that table or not, or how useful that table is, I don't know, but it does explain it successfully in terms of what you know what is if you know what is, right? So, okay, functions and jurisdictions. FI and TI render decisions, basically. FE and TE interact, SI and NI know, and SE and NE judge. You could say render is judge. I mean, it's SE and NE act. You could say this one is judge, too. Function jurisdiction. NE and SI, timelessness. SE and NI, timefulness. TE and FI, impacts. FE and TI, warrants. So this is basically saying NE and SI like to work in a situation where the past is defined, but the future is either understood by the defined past but unclear, and or potentiated about by NE. Whereas NI tries to encapsulate the fluid passage of time such that SE can act appropriately in the right moment. Warrants means explanations, justifications, or defensibility, basically. Functions and jurisdiction. SE and SI, self is body. NE and NI, self is mind. TE and TI, subject ignoring. FE and FI, subject addressing. That's a nice little table there, actually. I like this page a lot. This is a simple page. It's only got 3 little tables on it, but I really like it. I think it explains a lot in a little room, little space. Loci of concern. complements and clashes for judging interface functions. So locus of concern for TI's legitimacy, the complementary axis, naturally, is NESI because they all operate. NE operates is the action function of conditionality, where TI is the judging function. It's naturally going to feel comfortable there. SI would be more comfortable with FI maybe, but that's if SI were first, and it's not going to be. Yeah, ignore that. I'm getting bogged down. Clashing axis is NISE. It means if your TI-NI is not a natural combination. The loci of both variants. TI-NE, legitimacy of talking. TI-SE, legitimacy of doing. Procedure, working the system. TE. The complementary axis is NISE, and the clashing axis is NESI. TE-NI is optimality of procedure. TE-SI is optimality of self. Politics, working the room. FE, NE-SI is complementary, again because NE is the same aspect as FE, whereas NI-SE is not complementary. FE-NI, the social rightness of things. FE-SI, social realities of things. Authenticity, FI, the complementary axis is NISE, and the clashing axis is NESI. FINE, authenticity of talking. FISE, authenticity of doing. That's kind of, the last little bit is a little rough maybe, but I like that table too. Loci of ontologies, complements, and clashes for act and know functions. So, knowing me, if that's the locus of ontology, then the manifestation is SI, and the complementary axis is TI, FE. Why would it be that? It would be TEFS, no. Complementary with this is TEFI. TEFI. The clashing axis is TIFE. This is backwards. I don't know why. And this one, TIFE, and this one, FITE. NITE, knowing the path. It should be, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm right. FETI. This is the thing. I talk to myself like that all the time. Like there's more than one of me that I'm talking about. And one part of me disagrees with another part of me, and I go, you're right to the part. And it's strange. It's a strange thing to do. So, NIFE is knowing the other. NITE is knowing the path, and the clashing axis for NI is TE because it's not the same aspect. NI is metaphysical aspect, TE is physical aspect. SE, the complementary, this one's right. The complementary axis is TEFI, and the clashing axis is TIFE. SIFE, doing what feels good. SETI, doing what's decided, or doing what's justified, you might say, instead. Yeah, I guess that's a better way to put it. What's justified. Or justifiable. Talking, NE, is the manifestation, and the complementary axis is TIFE, and the clashing axis is TIFE. And NEFI, creating resonance. NETI, creating consistency, which is what I'm trying to do here, which is why I correct things as I go along like that, even though I'm sure it's very annoying, and I'm sorry I'm doing that. Page 36, slot relations based on tool functions. So, if your dominant function is extroverted intuition or extroverted sensing, then your tool function is TI or FI. If your dominant function is SI or NI, your tool function is TE or FE. If your dominant function is an interface function, your tool function is a knowing function. If your dominant function is a judging function, your tool function is an action function. In other words, if your nature is to act, then legitimizing is your way. If your nature is to know, then interfacing is your way. If your nature is to interface, then knowing is your way. And if your nature is to legitimize, then acting is your way. Slot relations, place of least resistance, and tool functions. This just goes through a lot of the ways that we can deduce one thing from another thing in terms of function mechanics. If your tool function is NE or SE, then your blind spot will also be NE or SE. The other one. It's going to be the other one. So if your tool function is NE, your blind spot's SE. If your tool function is SI or NI, then your blind spot's SI or NI. If your tool function is TE or FE, then your blind spot's TE or FE. If your tool function is TI or FI, then your blind spot's FI or TI. This is one of the reasons we can say that there's a grouping of functions that's more correct than NS, T, and F, which is actually action, knowing, interface, and judging, rather than seeing judging functions as being all four of the TE, FE, TI, FI, although they have judgy qualities to them. So in this case, let's look here. And the best way to put it is, if your tool function is let's talk more about this, you can't get how or why people take actual action in your seventh. So if your tool function is NE, your seventh function is SE. If your tool function is SE, your seventh function is NE. If your tool function is non-talking action, you don't get why people come up with ideas and talk shit out. If your tool function is NI, your second function category is epistemological, and your second function locus is discovered knowledge. Your polar is going to be SI, which is attained knowledge. If your tool function knows the disinterested truth, then you don't get knowledge from a personal perspective. SI, epistemological. It's a physical epistemology. Its locus of attention is attained knowledge, and the polar then would be discovered knowledge. If your tool function checks what you've done and learned before, then you don't get truth as external to that experience. TE, your tool function, subjective interface with object systems. Mechanical systems is the locus of the second function. And then FE would be your polar, which is social systems, because if your tool function... No, I haven't. I would love to. If your tool function attends to mechanics, and you don't get motivation. So I'm just going to finish this video, and then I'll be ready to interface with you. Using my interface function, my judging function. Yeah, she's hanging out with me.
Where is she?
Underneath my chair. I've been very careful not to roll around in the chair because
Come see me first.
she likes to hang out with me.
Come here.
Tool, TI. If TI is your tool function, objective judging systems like mine is, then logical systems is your locus of tool attention, and FI or logical systems, feelings logic is the thing that uses your polar, and you don't get it. If your tool function weighs through disinterested logic, you don't get what matters to you personally. FI, if FI is your tool function, then you have subjective judgment as your area of tool usage and logical systems, and TI would be your polar, because logical systems are things you just don't get. So that's why ESFPs, ENFPs can sometimes come into dramatic conflict with ESTPs and ENTPs, because you're going to most likely come into conflict with somebody who's got your tool as their polar. That's what's going to annoy you and drive you crazy, because they seem to be unable to communicate meaningfully about anything.
Your tool annoys me.
My tool annoys you?
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind. Okay, let me see how much time I get left.
Your polar tool.
My polar tool, huh? I don't have a polar tool. I just have a regular tool.
It's that one that's up in the air over there.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, we'll save this next video we'll save this next page about disorders and functions for the next video. Thanks for watching. This has been pages 31 through 36. Yeah, it's 31 through 36. Right? I think so. No, 31 through 37. 31 through 37 is this video page numbers, and I'm going to play this little song and then say goodbye. Happy trails, everybody. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese on your journey out west. And eggs. Cheese and eggs. Cheese and eggs, eggs and cheese. The only two ways that you'll know how to please. 32 through 37 will be the next one, then it'll premiere on Thursday.
What fingernails you have.
Aww. Upload video. 32 through 37. Oh wait, did I not stop it yet? I didn't stop it yet. Oops.